problem for Blake Lively, in my opinion, is that she does not improve upon acquaintance. And so the more time we got to spend with Blake Lively, the less we liked her. She has a history of saying, okay, I'll be the star, but what I secretly want to do is direct it and edit it and produce it. I want all the roles for me and only me. I want full control because I am a controlling bully. So normal people at home who don't care about this woman at all are looking at her like, I don't like her. She seems like a bully. She seems like somebody who punches down to somebody who's only trying to do something nice for her.
Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds only punch down, and this entire smear campaign fantasy falls apart the second you realize they've never once touched the people who hit hardest. Let's just start there and call it what it is. This isn't about justice. This isn't about clearing her name. It's about control. And control only works when the people you're targeting can't afford to punch back. And Blake and Ryan know exactly who's safe to attack. She went after YouTubers, TikTokers, micro-influencers, women creators with limited resources and growing audiences. She blanketed them with subpoenas one after another, hoping to drown them in legal fees and silence. But here's the pattern. Not a single subpoena to people with real power. No Megyn Kelly. No Billy Bush. And why not? Because they don't punch up. Megyn Kelly publicly accused Blake of commandeering the set, making false allegations, manipulating her own movie, and trying to control the narrative through legal threats. She said far worse than any creator who got subpoenaed, and yet, nothing. Not a whisper, not a warning, no subpoena. Same with Billy Bush. And here's where it gets extra ridiculous. Blake's supporters are actually trying to spin Billy Bush as a paid agent of Justin Baldoni. Yes, really. Here is what has them in a tizzy.
I think she had complicated feelings for Justin. I think sometimes she was annoyed by him. I think sometimes she was overly impressed by him. I think part of her was pissed off psychologically that number 2 on the call sheet from Jane the Virgin actually went out, developed material like Reese Witherspoon or some of these other, really good producers, actors turned producers, developed this amazing material like you did, and the Gossip Girl couldn't do it. And so she wanted to, it pissed her off. I think she had an attraction to him, and I think she also hated him for his ability to focus that hard and pull this amazing project off all the way through to massive profit. And I think that pissed her off, and she realized, that if she were to do the next movie, she would have to claim SH or something that would be enough evidence to remove him from it.
But Blake and Ryan wouldn't dare touch Billy. He's a media veteran, part of a political dynasty, connected, respected, untouchable. And if they tried to subpoena him over a segment or a quote, the pushback would be immediate, public, and catastrophic. And that's why they stay silent. Because this was never about who said the most, it was about who they thought would say the least. But here's where it gets even darker. Blake's team falsely accused Justin Baldoni's attorney, Brian Freedman, of calling her a bitch. Yes. They stood there on the record and said he called her a bitch and a narcissist. They used that quote to justify targeting him, to justify their subpoenas, to frame him as central to a smear campaign. But here's the twist. He never said it. The quote wasn't his. It was Megyn Kelly's. On video, on the record, and undeniable.
Undermining any attempt to sue me for potentially defamatory statements. And then I will leak it to the New York Times so it will get out there. And then everyone will know that I'm the victim here, as opposed to the narrative that existed prior to her filing that complaint, which was, she seems like a real bitch, and she is tone deaf on domestic violence, and she seems to have blown up her movie for no apparent reason. Those were the buzz. That was part of the buzz going around about her. She bullies reporters. That was also part of it. So is that your theory of the case, Brian, that she launched this whole thing in her own effort at PR spin and control?
So let's walk through this again. They misquoted an attorney, lied to a judge, built part of their case on a false attribution. And when the receipts came out, nothing, no correction, no apology, no retraction. Because Brian Freedman was easier to attack than Megyn Kelly, easier to paint as the bad guy, safer than people with huge platforms. And that's the whole game. They pretend not to see the people with power while dragging the people without it through the mud. They ignore the big names and go after small creators who are just doing their jobs, commenting, reporting, and sharing opinions. And to their surprise, those creators didn't fold. They got louder, organized, and exposed the contradictions. Used the spotlight Blake threw on them to flip the script. And now, Blake and Ryan are stuck pretending that hundreds of critical voices are all part of a secret, untraceable smear ring. Stuck pretending that Megyn Kelly never said what everyone heard. Stuck acting like subpoenas are justice instead of intimidation. But the internet isn't buying it anymore. Because if this were really about clearing Blake's name, she'd start with the loudest voices. She'd face the people with platforms. But she won't, and neither will Ryan. Because this was never about truth, it was about silence. And they targeted the people they thought wouldn't speak up. They miscalculated. Now they're being exposed by the very voices they tried to shut down. Blake and Ryan only punched down, and now they are upset because people are punching back. So if Blake and Ryan keep pretending they didn't hear Megyn Kelly loud and clear, just know it's not because they missed it. It's because they're hoping you did. Like, comment, and subscribe if you're tired of watching these clowns weaponize silence while the rest of us get subpoenaed for speaking. And hey, just remember, this is all opinion, commentary, and speculation. But if the silence always seems strategic, maybe that's not a coincidence. And again, no, Justin Baldoni didn't make me say this. But if he did, at least he wouldn't hide behind a subpoena.